continuing in the Rav, V'nei kasher tzimtzum atzmai, when this tzimtzum took place, when the Or Ein Sof contracted itself, once again the Or Ein Sof is contracting itself to the circumference of the ogol, of the halal, az derech tzad echad, min ha-halal ha-ogol hazeh, so from one side, in other words, from one point on the circumference, himshich or derech kav echad yoshodak. So the matzil is mamshech, brings forth the Or Ein Sof through what's called a kav, a line, which is straight and which is dak, which is very thin. So in other words, from one point on the circumference, a line emerges from the circumference. We're speaking about, of course, the Or Ein Sof. And this Or Ein Sof, which emerges from a line, which is from one point on the circumference, and it's going to re-enter into the halal, into the space within the interior of the circle. Ke'ein tzino echad. So the Rav says this is like a pipe, which is, through the pipe is running the Or the Ein Sof, or hanimshach me Ein Sof el toich halal hazeh. So within this pipe, within this tzinoah, you have the Or the Ein Sof, which runs through the pipe and enters into the interior of the circle. Umamali oisai. And this Or Ein Sof is going to fill up the circle. Now, when we say it fills up the circle, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go back to the initial position, which means it's only going to be Or Ein Sof, but rather filling up does not literally mean the entire area of the interior, but rather we're going to have the creation of all the olamis, creation of all of the worlds, and that is going to take place through the Or Ein Sof within the interior of the circle. That's what it means, Mamali Oisai. In other words, where the Ein Sof creates all of the olamis that Mitzvah Shem, the Rav, the Ari is going to be speaking about. So all of this is going to take place within the halal. And this is what's called Mamali Oisai. Now, it goes on the Ari and says, Aval Nisha Mokum Panoi, Ben Or Shebatoich Halal Zeh, U Ben Or Ein Sof Hamakif Et Zah HaChalal, Kaniska, Shenistamtzem El Stodov. Okay, I'm going to read and just translate, and after that I'm going to explain the Fianiyas Daiti, what the intention here is. Aval Nishar Mokum Panoi, there remained a gap, a space which is devoid of the Or Ein Sof, Bein HaOr Shebatoich Halal Zeh, between the light that's within the interior of the circle, Ubein Or HaEin Sof, and between the Or the Ein Sof on the circumference, Hamakav Ezah Halal, which surrounds the halal, the interior of the circle, Kaniska, which was mentioned before, Shenistamtzem El Stodov, this is the Or Ein Sof, which contracted to the circumference. Now, when a person reads this, one is tempted to understand that this gap, this empty area, this vacuum, is a vacuum between the circumference of the circle and between the kav. But chas v'shalom, this is for sure not what the Ari had in mind, and we're going to see in the Hemshech, in the continual lines, that this is for sure not the way to understand the Otzrot Chayim, in particular because the Ari has already said, right, that in fact the kav has emerged from a point on the circumference, right? That's what he said. So therefore it's impossible that the Or Ein Sof is going to skip a gap from the circumference, and the line, the kav, is going to remain discontinuous and does not intersect the Or the Ein Sof, which is on the circumference. Okay, that is not what is meant. In any case, we're going to, maybe I will explain a little bit, Tani Vahada, right? That, in fact, actually, with the meaning, what the Ari means to say is that all of the olamas, all of the worlds that are going to emerge, that are going to be generated by this kav, which means what we're going to see, the olamas, the worlds of Igulim, and the olamas of Yesha, all of these worlds are going to, in fact, be separated by empty space, by vacuum, from the Or Ein Sof, which is on the circumference. But the Kav itself certainly emerges in a continuous way from one point on the circumference. In other words, basically, if we use a very simple geometric diagram, if we have a circle and a line emerges from one point on the circumference and then creates what's called concentric circles within the area of the larger circle, of the general circle. So the line which emerges from the circumference certainly, in fact, is connected, right? Is connected, continuous. There are no discontinuities. That line is connected from a point on the circumference. But nonetheless, the concentric circles are all at a positive distance from the circumference, the larger circumference of the circle itself. So that's really what the Ari has in mind. When the Ari says, Nisha Mokum Poni Ben Ha'or Shebetoich Halal Zeh, when the Ari says is that there's going to be an area which is devoid of Or Ein Sof Kiviyachol, when there's going to be a vacuum, an open space between the light within the halal, within the interior, and between the Or Ein Sof HaMakif, he's not referring to the actual kav, beginning of the kav, but he's referring to all of the concentric circles or geometric lines, Yesha, which are going to generate all of the worlds that will emerge from the kav itself. That's what the Ari is coming to say. And in Mitzvah Shem, right, Tana Vahada Mazbi, after that we're going to go on and see how this actually fits in to the rest of the words of the Ari.